Welcome to Sweet Talk. This broadcast is brought to you by the Continuing Education Workforce Training Division of Idaho State University's College of Technology. This podcast is part of our continuing outreach efforts, and the format is conversational. We will be having conversations with businesses, professionals, entrepreneurs, community agencies, and, in all cases, difference makers. Now, let's get started with Sweet Talk. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to Sweet Talk. And I'm Jason Batalden. I'm the Assistant Director here at Continuing Education Workforce Training. And ladies and gentlemen, she's back.
And they run screaming for
yes, no. I am so glad that you're here with us today. Danelle Bronco is here with us today as our special guest. Obviously, I don't want to steal any of the thunder that we want to talk about, but for those of you that may be new to the podcast, you need to go find her previous episode.
Oh.
She explored, which is, by the way,
internet.
our second most popular episode on SoundCloud. So you're well.
For all 12 people, I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we got up to 12. Yes, and we're off. We're running already. So I will tell you, Danelle, that just in this room alone, you probably have a serious devoted fan club. I just want you to know that. We were so glad to have you on last time, and when I told them all that you were on today, they were excited. So. I know we're not talking today about any more adventures out in the wilderness. Wait a minute, do we have any more adventures out in the wilderness?
No more adventures.
Really?
Really? I mean, as we were coming in today, he said he'd been doing any skiing. I said, oh yeah, I could tear up that bunny hill like nobody's business. So ski on, people.
So I will tell you, after your podcast recorded, I made sure my wife listened to it.
Uh-huh.
We loved it, and your story about jumping off the cliff at the end.
Oh, right.
That was so fantastic. And what was the thing you said was, Mom, so your daughter had something to you about popcorn in a movie. And,
no, that was my niece. She's like, come on, Auntie.
Yeah,
give me the popcorn because these previews are getting old.
Because you kept, okay. Well, that's not what we're here to talk about, and I'm sorry. Danelle, we're here to actually talk about something important, very important, and very serious, and it's coming up. And so I'm going to kind of let you kick it off and kind of share with me what brought you, other than our invitation, and so glad to have you. What are we talking about today?
Well, I'm here just as an ordinary person. I'm not representing anybody, any faction, any division. I just want to let you and all you folks in our studio audience know that you count. And there's more meanings.
She always has a positive message.
Right?
She always makes you feel better, doesn't she? That's a gift. I already feel better.
Thank you. But seriously,
no, okay.
This year in 2020, April 1st, we are having the United States decennial. The decennial is the count of all people in the United States without regard to race or ethnicity, citizenship. You count, and you count, and you count, and you count, and only 12 listeners count.
They all count.
That's true.
Yeah, you count.
That's right. So on a more serious note, somebody could really geek out on the census, but if you're just an average person like me who likes to know trivia, but more than trivia, want to understand some facts and findings and figure out how does this world work. The census is one of the ways that you can kind of figure out, where do people live? Where are they going to build a new hospital? Mm-hmm. How about these decrepit roads and infrastructure? And how come I have cell phone dead zones?
Right.
All of those come from data. And the data that we gather is through the census.
Right.
And that determines where people live, where people work, where people play, and an allocation of resources
For those counts.
gets sent to wherever the most people are.
So there's a couple little interesting things, right, about the census. Number one, it's constitutionally mandated, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So we do it every 10 years, which
Yep.
is where you got that fancy what?
The decennial.
There you go.
That's a word.
That's the real word. Okay, any English majors want to tell you?
Decade.
See, there we
That's
go.
right.
Decade. Very
Decennial
good.
Decade. Once a decade.
So, and a little interesting, I did some research, by the way, because this is an
Okay.
important issue.
Absolutely
it
is.
really is. And it has there's been some controversy around it here recently that we can touch into.
Oh,
if
are we
want
going to get political? Let's roll.
Why not? I mean, I think we can do this without passing judgment, right? We can.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the reality is, but let's start first. The first census was in 1790.
That's correct.
And what I don't know is how many people were
Counted then?
Yeah.
I
Probably
don't know
more than
either.
12. I bet more than
Yeah,
our podcast
right,
audience.
right.
Right.
Well, our first.
And who they counted, I imagine, was an issue back then too, because some people didn't count, right?
Oh, geez.
Because
I
like
think
2/3 are, based on race and that kind of stuff.
he's probably did a lot more research.
No.
than I've done.
I'm just guessing. I'm just guessing. So please hold your
I
comments.
think you're correct, David.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, he probably is correct.
Right.
My focus, well, let's address your concerns. So, President George Washington was the president from when the first census started.
Okay.
And at that time, 1790, we all weren't alive back then, but through history, we would probably understand that there were people who were here,
Right.
probably slaves.
Yeah. Slaves. Right.
My people, for instance,
Right.
the Native American
Americans,
population,
correct.
we weren't counted.
No.
There were probably other either racial or ethnic
Well,
groups
I wonder
that
if you
weren't
do you
counted.
think I don't know, but were women counted back then?
Probably not.
Anybody want to Google that while we're talking and find out before we get ourselves in big trouble?
Sure.
Yeah.
So as history develops
Right.
and as the world becomes more conscious of
Sure.
people
Sure. Well.
and
yeah.
who we are
Right.
and what our value is, then the census has actually started being more inclusive of different types of races or ethnicities
Mm-hmm. Right.
or populations. And so they've created, as it goes along, an opportunity for people not to just identify as, red or white
Sure.
or black
Right,
or
right.
yellow.
Right.
They have allowed many more types of populations, races, and
Right.
ethnicities to be
Counted.
counted. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's only right.
Right.
It really is.
Well, and that kind of brings us to the more current controversy that, and I don't have the dates, but that was last year. By the way, Sammy, did we find an answer?
According to National Geographic, the census categorized the population of the new nation according to liberty, sex, and age. 3
Okay.
white males age 16 and older, 3 white males under age 16, 3 white females, and all other free people and slaves.
Oh, they counted slaves then too?
Yeah, but they weren't.
Full counted.
They probably really weren't counted.
Yeah, right.
I think
Okay.
it was the percentage count.
Like
Sure.
is that where the 2/3? I mean, I'm not saying anything untrue. That was just the way it was. So, but that brings us kind of to our current issue, right? Because this big issue of immigration came up, right? This
Oh.
was a question is asking if there was
Oh, yeah.
citizenship on the
Oh,
census,
so
and that was.
herein lies the politics.
Well, no,
of the
but I mean,
matter.
I think it's something we can talk about, right? I mean, I'm not trying to drag up controversy, and I'm just saying this was an issue, right? All of a sudden, what is a census supposed to do?
The census is supposed to count all,
All
people,
people.
that reside in the United States and our territories.
For those very reasons you talked about, right? For those
Absolutely.
very services, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So, that question came up then, do immigrants who are here,
Do they count?
Do they count?
Absolutely, they count.
Right.
So
Right, they do. I mean,
Absolutely
they
they
do. And the Supreme Court said they do. I mean, that they went that far, right? Now I know there's people that are going to argue, blah blah blah, but for this census,
Yeah.
everyone counts,
That's-
regardless of your personal or political persuasion.
Absolutely. So we could talk a little bit about that. They have sanctuary cities now.
Correct.
You could pull up, just Google it, folks.
Mm-hmm.
Google the sanctuary cities in the United States. So although those folks that live in those sanctuary cities that, the United States takes in and provides probably shelter and food and clothing and
and by the
medical
way,
and health care.
Lets those same people work in jobs.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Absolutely.
Anyway.
And they count. Idaho, although we don't formally have sanctuary cities, in Boise, the state leaders have declared Boise a welcoming city.
The city leaders, not the state necessarily.
Well,
right.
probably. So, yeah.
No.
At any rate, you've hit the nail right on the head.
Right.
There are people who live here that may not be United States citizens, but we still provide for them
Sure.
and provide opportunities for them to even give back to us, and they need to be counted.
Sure. Well, they got a term for it. It's the shadow, right? The people living in the shadows.
Oh, yeah.
And so, and
there
we're not
are more people living in shadows.
Right. And what they mean by that is people who are with us every day, shopping at our grocery stores, contributing. They are paying taxes, sales tax, and work, and all those types of things, and all those kinds of issues. Living in, renting apartments from, we're all good as long as everybody pays their share, right?
Everybody
But
pays.
just don't tell us where you're from, so to speak. But the census here, we're not really interested in that so much, are we?
Absolutely we are.
Well, no, not where they're from.
Oh, no. Okay. Oh,
Yeah,
I
just what I'm saying. We're interested that they're here.
Yes.
We're not asking how you got here or where you're from or
Right.
If you were.
We're just interested in that
Right.
people respond to that census survey. So can I take that topic just one step
Yeah.
further?
Yeah.
So the census has also created a demographic map. And again, like I said, this is where people could really geek out on this, because you can have economists and
Sure.
you have labor market economists or analysts or individuals who this is their bailiwick, is to study who lives here. So they've created what's called hard to count communities, and they've identified those hard to count communities, and it takes into consideration factors from the 2010 census that probably were low response rates, people who were at risk for being undercounted are communities or populations with children under 5, a lot of children under 5. So let's say a retirement community, for example.
Okay.
Where they're mostly older folks, they're
Right.
retired individuals. They might see the civic responsibility. They've lived a lot of decades, so they've probably responded to those censuses. But when you have a family that's either has a lower income of living or a lot of children, they're busy, they're hustling, trying to get kids to school and off to daycare, and they're wondering how are we going to pay for daycare. They might be holding down 1 job, 2 jobs, side gigs, this and that. So when a census survey comes in the mail, there's like whatever,
Well, yeah, right.
And it's important to count those people, because if you really stop and think about it, the decennial is for those populations that have a lot of kids under age 5.
Right.
This sets the tone for the next 10 years
Right.
of those children's lives.
Right.
And so it's vital that we reach those hard to count populations.
Right. And resources, community resources,
Absolutely.
everything
All of it.
values, right?
Yeah, because
So
they're going to go to school, they're going to want school lunch, and they're going to need a bus to get. They might need after-school daycare and all of that.
So
healthcare.
Right. And so I'm going to ask, you brought up a point earlier, though. And so I'm going to make my little confession here on Sweet Talk. When's the last, I get mail.
Sure.
I get mail every day.
Absolutely, we do.
Of many pieces of the mail that I get every day, you want to know how many I open?
3.
How
2.
many do you open? How many? You know what I mean? Let's think about this.
Oh,
The mail we
geez.
get in our
Yeah.
mailbox every day.
Right.
It's for
Flyers,
flyers,
and
this
ads,
and coupons, and
yes.
hey,
Newsletter,
my favorite.
healthcare.
I now take mail, and you bend it because sometimes they put credit cards or those things in there. So
Yep.
it's like, what is this, right? So I look at mail, and this is me, right? I look at mail and I look at it suspiciously.
Oh, sure you do.
In the sense of, and so we actually had to set this rule in our house because we have this big table right in our house,
Yeah.
right? And so whoever gets the mail, we just throw it on the table, right?
Everybody has
and then
that.
throw it on the table. And
Everybody
then at the end of the week, you're like, good grief, what's on the table? This is crazy, you know?
Yep.
So we had to make this rule. So we literally, there's a trash can right there, and, you know,
Garbage in,
stuff doesn't
garbage
even
out.
get
Yeah.
opened,
Yeah.
you know?
Okay.
So, I mean,
So how are we going to reach people?
well,
right?
right. So I mean,
how are you gonna get somebody to
so
pay
now
attention to
the
that?
preferred way, right? They reach out with this. What on March 12th they begin mailing these things, right?
Absolutely,
And
yep.
they come in as a questionnaire, and you fill it out, and the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
So, but chances are, I mean, if it shows up at my house and I'm not aware,
You're going to go dunk.
dunk, right?
Yep.
So that's part of the obstacle here. Not only is
Absolutely.
the target populations or the hard to count populations. That's a better, sorry,
Yeah,
target,
it is.
but,
Yeah,
but hard to count populations, you know, especially those with young children, right? And now we also have, you know, a very important and special way that we stay connected, but it's not the way people prefer to be contacted much anymore, through the mail. So what other options? I mean, what else are they doing?
Jason's done his homework.
That's called a softball question.
Okay, good. Well, I got it. Okay, gotcha.
Oh,
So through the census, we found out that during the 2010 decennial, 90% of households have something called a computer.
yes, there we go.
So that computer can be this iPad, but more importantly, that computer can be that little handheld phone, right? That we all carry. Even the 2 and 5-year-olds have
Right.
cell phones nowadays.
And they use it better than I do. Right.
So the Census Bureau's recognize this, and again, that comes from previous data, and that is we're encouraging people, and I say we're because I'm really behind this campaign. I really see the vital importance of all people responding to this. So on March 12th or after, it's about a 2-week time frame that we really want people to respond. There will be a live survey link on the census.gov website. You would just pull it up on your phone,
Right.
and it asks you 10 questions. And those 10 questions are about the people who live in the same household or the dwelling that you live in. So we're here on Idaho State University campus. You have a dorm full of people, right? I don't know what. I hope this reaches your ISU student body so
Right.
that they
Can
understand you count. And although they might live in a dorm at that time, the answers for those 10 questions are still vital and they're still important.
Important, right.
Absolutely, they are. So this year, the census has made it easy for people to respond online. We would presume that a majority of people will respond online.
Right.
You can also phone it in. Just pick up the phone, dial a toll-free number, and provide your answers over the phone. You can fill out a census survey. And again, this kind of goes back to but the Census Bureau's designed it so that a lot of populations can be factored. We understand that most old folks like to see
Right.
things in black
Correct.
and white,
Right,
so they
right,
probably
right,
want to
right.
check a box
Right.
and then check another box and fill in boxes and fold it up and put in the mail slot.
Right.
You can still do that. Or if you don't elect to do any of those things, you just sit and wait for a census enumerator to come knock on your
Okay.
door.
I was just going to ask that because I remember people used to come to the door. So
Yeah.
they're still doing that.
Oh yeah, definitely. So census enumerators, that process of hiring those is occurring right now. For 2 weeks, they're going to be out in full force, knocking on doors. And they'll knock on a person's door up to 6 times in order to garner a response. And they can only talk to adults in the household, not kids.
Right.
But again, the presumption is that there are 3 ways to respond. So if you don't want people come knocking on your door, especially someone who's going to flash you a badge, just as I'm from the United States government,
Oh, yeah.
you know,
Right.
that could freak some people
It
out.
does. It does. Well, and that kind of, I kind of want to jump to this next piece, right? So we've got the mail,
Yes.
we've got online,
Yes.
we've got people show up at our door,
Yep.
right?
And phone a friend.
And phone a friend. They call
Phone it
too.
in. Yeah, phone
they
it
can
in.
phone it in.
Yes.
So there's the 4 ways. So you're out advocating. You're sending this message, right?
Yeah.
Answer the census.
Yes.
Answer the call. I don't
Yeah,
know. Is that what
it
it's
is.
called?
Yeah, it could be.
Woo-hoo! Yeah, we
Just made
made
a
something
new
up.
campaign.
You're right. Answer the call, right? And be counted.
Yes.
Everyone's counted. What other things can we do as a community to kind of help get this message out?
Well, things such as podcast.
Okay.
Now, again, I want to let
We
you
got
know.
12 people who listen to our
all
podcast.
right.
Yeah,
But if those 12 people inform
right.
another 12 people,
Right.
and 12 people, and exponentially,
Sure.
that's how the word of mouth is.
Okay.
Well, in my
that's-
community, we call that the moccasin telegraph.
the
'cause
moccasin
sometimes that's quicker than anything else.
It still is.
Yeah,
It still
is.
is. It's
word of mouth.
word
So
of
I'm
mouth.
challenging you,
Right.
all of you.
So that's true. So March 12th, they start to get, and I saw somewhere, now I lost it. I saw where they were going to, I don't have it anymore, but the date. So I knew March 12th is when they get mailed.
Mm-hmm.
And then you said a short time after that, we have the online option. And
Yeah.
then I think starting in April, people start showing up at your door and knocking.
Sure.
And that, whatever the dates are. So how long of a time is the census for the whole year then, or?
No. It's an arduous process to count everybody. So they have a dedicated. Oh gosh, is that 20 minutes? Are you kidding? How does this go by so quickly?
Well,
It goes by so quickly. At any rate, April 1st is not a firm deadline.
Okay.
But it's the goal because Census Day is proclaimed April 1st. And it's not April Fool's Day. It's not
it's
April
not.
Fool's, no fooling around with this one. It's April 1st. We want you to respond.
Okay. So we're going to get the message out to our 12 listeners. Our 12 listeners are going to tell each one additional friend.
Yes,
And then
please.
those friends are going to tell
12 more friends.
12 more friends. And we're going to get the word out here, right? And we're going to especially talk and focus on the people who are hard to count. And, hey, how can let them know that this is important? This isn't to get anybody in trouble. This isn't the
yeah.
information that is required, that we gain from this as a country helps congressional districts
Oh, absolutely.
are formed on the Census Bureau too. So if you want your voice to matter in Washington, if you want to have a say on what's happening, make sure you get your voice in now, right? Make sure you get
Absolutely.
counted. Okay.
Absolutely. You got it.
All right. So Danelle, that was our time.
20 minutes.
20 minutes. Goes by fast.
It does.
You will probably end up as the guest with the most appearances record when whatever that will be, because we're going to have you on the show again.
Are we going to have our host one?
We are.
Wow.
But we just
exciting.
You want to host one too?
Yeah,
don't
I
you?
do.
See, yes.
Yeah,
All
sure
right.
would.
All right. So with that being said, we're done. Danelle, thank you so much.
You're
I
welcome
hope
very
we got.
much.
I think we got our message out.
Do you guys get the message?
Did you get okay?
I'm clear.
Counts.
Everyone counts.
You count.
Everyone
You
counts.
Everyone counts.
And so, with that being said, thank you guys. Check out our website at cetrain.isu.edu. That's cetrain at isu.edu. Our phone number,
282-3372. 208-282.
let's say it slow, 208
282.
282-3372. This is like I don't know how many podcasts, and I just write it down. Thank you very much.
One of these.
And to our 12 listeners, we love you.
You guys
All right.
rock.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks.
That was great.
Yeah.